Hey everyone, I'm Angie Miller and I'm the host of Strong Mind, Strong Body. And in my upcoming episode, I have brought you part 2 of my series on the I am trap. And this second part is focused on solutions, how to rewrite your mental health story. So I talk about the I am trap and how we get trapped in these identities. We get inside of the identity like I am anxious, I am depressed, I am not good enough. And in part 2, I give you solutions on how to step outside of this narrative or this cognitive bias that we hold and how to rewrite our story because we are the author of our story. And that is such an empowering thing to remember. So, in my first part 1, it was the why. And in today's episode, it's the how. And it's research backed tools to help you rewrite your story. So, I really hope that you'll join me for this episode. And when you're finished watching, I hope you'll like, follow, and subscribe. I'll see you in the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller, and this is part 2 of my series on the I am trap. How the stories we tell ourselves can keep us stuck, especially when it comes to our mental health. So if you missed part 1, I hope you'll pause, put this on hold, and go back and listen to part 1 first. Because in that episode, we explored how identifying as a label, like I am anxious, or I am depressed, or I am not good enough, can quietly turn temporary experiences into fixed identities. So, we also talked about how diagnosis can definitely help us understand ourselves. But when we make it our entire story, it limits who we become. And I don't just mean clinical diagnosis, I mean self diagnosis, and I also mean limiting beliefs. So that's the why. The why was in the first episode. But today we're moving into the how. Today is about the practical research backed tools that will help you rewrite your story and reclaim authorship of your mental health narrative. Because at the end of the day, you are the author of your story. You get to write the story about your own mental health, no matter the diagnosis. So I am so ready for this. How about you? So I have 7 steps today that are going to help you rewrite your story. So I'm going to dive right in and start with step 1. Step 1, if you're going to rewrite your story and reclaim authorship of your mental health narrative, is that you have to shift your language. So think of one I am statement that feels unshakable for you. It could be I am anxious, could be I am lazy, it could be I am too sensitive, it could be I am not worthy. It could be, I am bad at fill in the blank. Okay, you got one? Hopefully, you're going to pause the show for a minute and just come up with one I am statement that feels unshakable for you. And now ask yourself, when did I first start believing that? So, most of our beliefs could be traced back to early experiences. Could be a teacher's comment, could be something one of your peers said to you, could be a parent's criticism, it could be a painful moment of rejection. But most of our beliefs do trace back to something somewhere earlier on in our experiences. And psychologists call these frameworks schemas. They're mental templates that shape how we see ourselves and the world around us. So once they form, our brain filters everything through those schemas. It's a process known as confirmation bias. So, in other words, we want to confirm the bias that we hold. Isn't that what we all do? Don't we listen to the news station that aligns with our beliefs? I bet most of us do. I bet we read journal articles that align with our beliefs. We want to support our bias. We want to confirm that this bias or this belief system that we have is the absolute truth. So if your schema is, I am socially awkward, you are bound to remember that one awkward moment at a party 12 and a half years ago, 6 hours and 6 days ago. Okay. Poof. You forget the 100 smooth conversations you've had, the 100 times you've been to a party and you've had this amazing time. You're going to remember that one awkward moment where you said or did something that you're like, oh, if only I could forget. But of course, your mind's not going to let you forget it because it's confirmation bias. It fits into your schema, this belief system that you have. So you're going to hold on to that because it's like a puzzle piece that fits perfectly. So research shows that these identity-based narratives can become self-fulfilling. Of course, it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy that we create. It reinforces stress and it reinforces low mood or affect over time. In other words, in a nutshell, we are going to latch on to whatever supports our narrative. If our schema is, I'm not a good speaker, then we're not going to believe the 50 awesome comments about our presentation. We're going to hold on to the one comment that was not positive. It's that Teflon versus Velcro narrative. What we believe sticks and what we don't meets serious resistance. We can't hear it. We can't believe it. We can't absorb it. So to loosen that grip, we have to start by changing our language, right? And that is number one, changing our language or shifting our language. So instead of I am anxious, it's I experience anxiety. Instead of I am broken, it is I'm healing from hard things. Instead of I am a failure, it is I've had failures and I'm learning from them. It's a both and. And still, one of my favorite episodes is the episode on both and thinking. Yes, I might have failed at this, and I always learn from my failures. So language creates distance, and with distance becomes possibility. So the further we distance ourselves from this bias that we hold, the more we have room between us and this bias to create new possibility, to rewrite our story. So to practice this, notice your I am statement, whatever it was that you would come up with. Notice your I am statement for 2 days and then rewrite your top 3 using I experience, I'm learning, or I'm working on. So let's say it is, I am not worthy. It could be, I experience feelings that I'm not worthy, or I'm learning to do things that make me feel more worthy, or I am working on changing my mental framework so that I can use kinder language toward myself. Okay. So number 2, if we want to rewrite our story, we have to rebuild our sense of agency. So when you've told yourself the same story year after year after year, it can feel like it's happening to you, like you're a victim of your own story. And it really does feel like that. So psychologist Martin Seligman calls this learned helplessness. It's the belief that nothing you do is going to matter. So why bother? It's like holding our hands up and being like, what's the point? Okay, it's learned helplessness. Nothing I do is going to change this. So I'm not going to do the do. I'm just going to sit in my story and feel really, really bad for as long as it takes. So to counter this, to rebuild your sense of agency, I would suggest you start an agency log, not an agency, but an agency log. So each day, write down one small choice that you made on purpose. Like, I didn't want to go to that event, but I showed up. Or I finally made that call that I was avoiding. Or I finally said no when I actually wanted to say no. So these micro moments of you taking agency are going to retrain your brain to see you as the almighty author of your own story, which is exactly what you are. So over time, you're rebuilding evidence that you do, in fact, have influence. And yes, your actions matter. They always do. Learned helplessness might be a thing in our mind, but it's not a thing in the world. We do have agency, and our actions do matter. I'm not saying that all the actions that we take are going to have good outcomes. Oh my goodness, that's just not true. But at least we took our power back and we made a choice to try. And that matters more than anything. So, step 3, if you're going to rewrite your story, is practice narrative flexibility. So, I love this one and I hope you're ready. Okay. This is where, if you're going to tell a story, let's tell multiple versions. Okay. So, this is narrative flexibility. It's telling multiple versions of your own story. So, here's an example. I have clients tell me this. I'm just bad at relationships. So, here's multiple versions of this story. The victim story is nothing ever works out for me in relationships. The observer story, a little bit more distance, is I've had relationships that have gone wrong, but they've all taught me something. And then the growth story is I've learned to set boundaries and choose better partners so that I can feel better in my relationships. 3 different versions: the victim story, the observer story, the growth story. Same facts, different lens. So, research on narrative therapy shows that when we reframe our life stories this way, it increases our psychological well being and it bumps up our resilience. So, instead of aiming for the truth, I love this about our world and humans. Everybody's got the truth. It's not really the truth, though, it's their truth. So, instead of aiming for the truth, you're just going to aim for a truer, kinder version of your story, one that's going to leave you room to grow. Remember, there's your truth, there's the other person's truth, and then there's the truth that lies somewhere in the middle. So often our truth is whatever story we've created. And so again, just try to rewrite your story and create a kinder, truer version of your story. Pretend like it's your best friend's story, and I guarantee you'll be so much nicer. So, step 4, another thing you could do is learn to diffuse your thoughts, DEFUSE. And I've talked about this in a few of my podcasts. It's from acceptance and commitment therapy. And it's simple, but it's powerful. Instead of saying, I am worthless, try, I'm having that thought again that I'm worthless. That small change moves from being inside of your story, like inside of the circle of worthlessness, to being outside of the circle of worthlessness, and you're observing that you are experiencing these feelings of not being worthy, but you are not inside the circle of worthlessness. It's separating you from the story and it's creating distance. So Stephen Hayes, who founded acceptance and commitment therapy, I've heard him speak and he's wonderful. And he describes this as cognitive diffusion. It's where we create space between you and your thoughts so that you can respond to what you're thinking instead of react. Because think about it. If you walk around in life and your story is, I'm not worthy, and you've got this confirmation bias, right? You're going to do or hear whatever confirms your bias that you're not worthy. You're probably going to surround yourself with people who make you feel like you're not worthy. People who don't treat you well. You're probably not going to have the best boundaries. You're probably going to be in a job that doesn't make you feel good. It's whatever confirms your bias. So if you want to create cognitive diffusion and separate you from this feeling, then that's what you have to do. You have to be an observer instead of being inside. So a couple of the things that Stephen Hayes says is, visualization is powerful. You can visualize your thoughts like they're floating down a stream. You don't have to fight them. You can just watch them drift by. But again, it's about language, but it's also can be powerful to do visualization. So instead of I am worthless, I am having the thought that I am worthless. And then, I'm going to watch that thought just disappear down the stream because it's not serving me anymore. So step 5, if you want to rewrite your story, and don't we all, because how cool that we are the author of our own story, we can act as if. So you can't think your way out of a fixed identity always, but what if you acted your way out of it? So let's say that you believe I am bad at public speaking. We talked about this one earlier. Act as if you're learning to be a public speaker, like you're a novice. So just the next time you have a meeting at work and you're that person who never speaks up, I would encourage you to speak up. Even if you say something civil, I love your shirt. You spoke up in a meeting. Okay. Speak up once in a meeting. So act as if you're already that thing. So if you believe I'm not athletic, try one new activity and notice what your body can do. This one's a powerful one. Like if you're a trainer and you're working with clients and they come in and they're like, well, I'm just not athletic. You say, well, guess what? At the end of the session, you're like, you just showed me what an athlete you are because they did the do. They acted their way out of this belief, right? So it's kind of like people when they say, well, I'm just not a good test taker, but they take the test. So they might not believe they're a good test taker, but taking the test is an act of doing. It's an act of empowerment. It's an act of agency. So behavioral activation research shows that new small experiences can literally rewire brain pathways linked to identity and mood. So action tells your nervous system a new story. Action is empowerment. I still hold on to confirmation bias about age because society is so hooked on age. You're too old for this, you're too old for that. And so I act my way out of it. My goal now is every week I have to do something I've never done. It could be the smallest, silliest thing. Okay. And it might not be something I've never done, but something I haven't done for ages and ages. So I'm going back to improv tonight and taking another improv class because I haven't done that since 2022, I think. So it is kind of acting my way out of my age, if you will, or my bias about age and what society says. It's like, guess what? I am an empowered human. I have agency over my story and my life. If society wants to say age is a barrier, I'm going to show them an age is an opportunity and I'm going to defy all the odds. So that's how I am taking agency and acting as if. So, number 6, another way that you can do this is trace and challenge the origin. So, find out, where did your story begin? So, ask yourself, when did I start believing this story? Okay. When did I start believing that I'm not worthy? Who told me? And were they qualified to define me? Was it like your first boyfriend who broke up with you in college and they broke up in this horrible way and said awful things to you? Are they qualified to tell you that? Or you could also ask what was happening in your life at the time, right? Because this gives you context. Maybe everything was going on at that time. Maybe you broke up with a really toxic partner. Maybe at the same time you were losing your job, you were in a new city, you didn't have any friends, you didn't feel the support system. And so things that happened and things that were said to you, you felt like they were happening to you. You didn't have as much agency over your life. And then what evidence do you have that contradicts this story today? So, yes, where did it first begin? Who told you and were they qualified? What was going on in your life at the time contextually? And then what evidence do you have now that would contradict that story? So, for example, I'm not creative. Could have come from a fifth grade art teacher. But now let's say you write poetry, you cook creatively, and you solve problems daily. That old story was never your truth. So step 7 is get support for the rewrite. You didn't create these stories alone. We don't live on this earth as a single entity. We are impacted by those around us. And I would like to think that that means that we are very cognizant and very empathic of how we impact others, knowing that each of us has an impact on every human we touch. And if we want the impact on our system to be kind and gentle, I hope we are putting kind and gentle out into the world. So you didn't create these stories alone, so you don't have to rewrite them alone. Studies show that narrative change is going to be most successful when it is supported by, quote, co-authors. So the co-authors could be therapists, coaches, trusted peers, a really, really good partner. So narrative change can It can happen, but a lot of times we have a hard time rewriting our own story. We need co-authors. We are great at rewriting our friend's story or somebody we admire, but not so much ourselves. So maybe just tell the people you trust, hey, if you hear me say X, like if you hear me say I'm too old or I'm not worthy, can you remind me, hey, Sam, Sally, Angie, Eric, remind me, hey, you're writing a new story. Remember? That doesn't fit into your new story. So, in closing, let's recap and bring all of this together. So, we talked about the I am trap, and then I gave you 7 solutions on how you can change or get out of that trap. Number 1 was to shift your language. Number 2 was to rebuild agency. 3 was to practice narrative flexibility. 4 is diffuse your thoughts. 5, act as if. And 6, challenge your origin story. And 7, get support. You don't have to do all 7. In fact, that would be kind of crazy. Just choose one. Choose one, and maybe next week choose another one, and next week choose another one. 1 or 2 will stick with you and resonate, probably if you won't. Because one new story, one new action, one new outcome equals one new belief. So remember, your story isn't set in stone. It's being written right now in every choice you make. Today, right here, right now, is part of your story. And I'm really happy that we could begin this rewrite process together, because you're not your diagnosis, self-diagnosis, or clinical or limiting belief. You're not your past. You are an author, and you can change the plot. So thank you for listening to part 2 on this series of the I Am Trap. If the episode resonated, I hope you'll share it with a friend or a partner who might need a little hope or perspective today. And if you want to keep the dialogue going, connect with me on Instagram or Facebook at Angie Miller Fitness, or visit me on my website, angiemillerwellness.com. Remember, your story is still unfolding and you hold the pen. So I'll see you next time.